What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, I'm going to talk about free hit for game week 12. I'm not sure how many people are actually activating the chip this week, but if you are, there's a pretty strong draft that you can put together, and I'm going to talk through the players that I've gone for, plus some alternatives that you can consider as well. And ultimately, it's the international break, so we've got a bit more time to talk about this stuff. So let's get into it. So for my defensive players, I've chosen Petrovic in goal, and then a back three of Virgil van Dijk against Forest at home, and then double Arsenal defence. With the goalkeeper, I'm not necessarily tied down to it having to be Petrovic. If you want to go for a different goalkeeper, obviously you should. But money is quite tight whenever I build a free hit team this season. Like, my bench is always full of super cheap players, and Petrovic is only 4.5 million. Bournemouth defence is not bad, and West Ham at home is a pretty good fixture. I know West Ham have done better over the last couple of games, but I would not be surprised to see Bournemouth get a clean sheet. If you want a different goalkeeper, let's say Alisson is back and you can afford it, then I really like him against Forest at home. Maybe go for the double up with Van Dijk as well. Verbruggen against Brentford at home is okay. But I look at those two fixtures, who's more likely to keep a clean sheet, Bournemouth against West Ham or Brighton against Brentford? It's got to be Bournemouth, right? I think Brentford are playing so well at the moment. Thiago there, Sharda, Utara, etc. It just looks quite nice. I don't hate Sanchez as well against Burnley away. But I guess in most cases, I'd prefer to pick a player at home. So goalkeeper, probably don't need to spend too much time on. Van Dijk, good for DEFCONs, good goal threat, good chance of a clean sheet this week. It's not an exciting pick, I would say. Like, you've got Daniel Munoz at Crystal Palace, who is in an away game against Wolves, but is way more attacking from open play. I don't hate you going for that instead. But Van Dijk just seems like a solid option that should pick up points one way or another this week. And then the double Arsenal defence I've chosen is Gabriel and Calafiori. I think you can go for any combination, right? Gabriel and Timber, Gabriel and Raya, whatever you want. But double Arsenal defence just looks strong this week. I think you look at Spurs and still consider it quite a tough fixture. It's a North London derby as well. But actually, despite the position that Spurs are in the Premier League right now, I'm not sure their attack is necessarily clicking completely. And Arsenal defence is just so difficult to break down. And even if they do lose the clean sheet again, like they did against Sunderland, both of these players have got attacking potential. Now, if I was wildcarding, I think I'd prefer Timber over Calafiori. And the main reason for that is, if either of them's going to get a bit of a rest, I feel like Arteta's more likely to drop Calafiori. You've got Lewis Skelly there. You've got Nkapie as well, that can both play that left-back position. Right-back, obviously, you've got Ben White. So there's consideration there as well. I just think that Timber's more nailed than Calafiori, basically. There's not much in it. They're both going to play the majority of Premier League games, but it's just these slight things I would think about for wildcard. Free hit, I think it'll be the standard back four this week. Calafiori, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber. Calafiori goal threat from open play is good. He was unlucky to not get a return against Sunderland, and I just think if one defender is going to pop up in open play in the box and take a shot, it's Calafiori from that back four. So that's why I've gone for him. So I feel like the midfield almost picks itself. There's a lot of strong options with a lot of good fixtures. And that's why I've spent quite a bit of money in this position. Salah would definitely be in for me on free hit 12. I mean, if you're free hitting this week or game week 14, part of the appeal is surely to get Liverpool players in for their good fixtures. And the best attacker is still Salah, despite what we've seen so far this season. You know he's going to start, which you can't necessarily say about the rest. And yes, his output hasn't been great this season for his price, but for 1 week only against Forest at home, I feel like you've got to include him if you're free hitting this week. Free hitting this week and going Haaland instead of Salah makes zero sense to me. So Salah would definitely be in. You don't have to captain him if you don't want to. There's other options in this team. But if I had him this week, I'm pretty sure that's where I would go. Then Saka, another really good option against Spurs at home. I'm on Saka, Gabriel, Raya. I'm pretty confident of returns this week from all of them. I'm not saying that Spurs is like a really easy game, but Arsenal are just so strong at home. Saka will get chances in that game, and he'd be my captain if you don't want to go for Salah. So that's a pretty easy inclusion this week. Then I've gone for Mbeumo against Everton at home, only one blank in his last 5 games. I think we can all agree, myself included, from open play, he is obviously better than Fernandes. The stats back that up as well. So he's the more exciting player to watch. Does that mean that Fernandes will never outscore him? Of course not, right? He's got penalties, DEFCONs. He can still pick up assists and stuff like that as well. But for 1 week only, I'd probably take the guy more likely to get you a goal from open play. So I've stuck Mbeumo in as well. Semenyo, West Ham at home. Again, almost just picks itself. because West Ham at home is such a good fixture. And I know they've had a couple of good results against Newcastle and then Burnley last week. But I think if you're considering the top 4 fixtures a player could have at the moment, and obviously this can change, but at the moment you're picking Burnley at home, Wolves at home, Leeds at home, West Ham at home, right? So West Ham at home, still one of the better fixtures. I didn't do a top 5, by the way, because then I'd have to have a discussion about whether Sunderland at home is top 5 fixture, and I'm not going to get into that in this video. Either way, West Ham is good. Semenyo missed a penalty, not great. If Kluivert's on the pitch for the next one, he'll almost certainly take it. And Semenyo's underlying numbers this season are not actually that special. It's about 0.3 expected goal involvement, which personally I prefer to see a bit higher, but he's going to play the full 90 almost certainly. And like I've said, it's a good fixture. So I feel like he's got to be in. And then Sarr against Wolves away. I mean, if Wolves at home is top 4 fixture, Wolves away is probably easily in the top 10 as well. They're just looking really poor right now. They will have a new manager in place. Maybe that'll make a difference, but they've still got the same players to choose from. And I don't think Wolves will end up necessarily finishing bottom, but it's really difficult to make a case that they won't get relegated right now. And again, things can change, but something drastic would have to change to make that a bad fixture. And Sarr's just such a good pick. So those 5 midfielders I found quite easy to choose. I mean, other options, if Enzo Fernandez is fully fit, then Burnley away maybe, but we know he's got a little bit of a problem, which is why he's missing international duty during the international break. And honestly, is he better than any of the 5 I've picked? I'm not so sure. You're not going to go for a different Bournemouth midfielder or Minte against Brentford over any of the players I've picked. Maybe if there's some kind of indication that Gakpo is going to start, you could stick him in as well as Salah, sorry. But if Slot says on the Friday press conference everybody's fit, then you've got doubts about his minutes and you just can't go there. Man City midfield I'd probably dodge for Newcastle away. Newcastle have had a couple of bad results, but they're still quite strong at home. And then I guess maybe Marino. If Yorkeresh and Havertz are still out, you could take a punt on him. And obviously Bruno if you wanted to instead. But for the most part, that midfield 5 pretty much just hand selected itself. And then up front, I've gone for a bit of a rogue pick. There's no Erling Haaland, and instead I've gone for Jean-Philippe Mateta, who I think will be in most free hit drafts this week. And then Raul Jimenez from Fulham, who I will come back to in just a second. On Haaland, I don't mind if you want to include him, but I just feel like it would be too many sacrifices. You'd have to cheapen the defence and take out at least one of Salah or Saka. And I think this week both are better than Haaland. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy to say, given how well Haaland started the season and the last couple of results Newcastle have had, etc. But it's still away. It's still St James's Park. That's not an easy place to go to. If you're ever going to back against him, it's a week like this. And also, I've been thinking, I think on the on the knee-jerk stream on Sunday, people were saying, well, it's a Newcastle team not doing well, and also Dan Burns missing. I don't know if Dan Burns is that much of a miss, if I'm honest, because he's playing left-back anyway, which is not really his standard position. And I think Newcastle will be better if they can get Lewis Hall back in playing regularly. And then the centre-backs are Botman and Chow, who are pretty good. So, yes, Newcastle have not looked great recently. It's probably not a bad time to play them away from home, but it's not going to be easy. And I don't think Dan Burn missing out... Well, maybe that's a bit harsh on Dan Burn, by the way, because we know Eddie Howe loves him. And maybe Haaland will score from a set piece that Dan Burn would have headed away or something like that. But I don't know if he's as big a miss as maybe some people are going to make out. So, if I'm on Free Hit 12... part of the reason to do it is because of the other good fixtures teams have outside of Man City. I would drop Haaland. You don't have to. It's your free hit team. Mateta kind of picks himself. It's Wolves away. Good fixture. He's on penalties, nailed, etc. Raul Jimenez, partly because of the money. There's not much money left over with this team. And it's Sunderland at home, which I still think is an okay fixture. Not as good as West Ham at home. Not as good as Wolves at home. But not awful. And he's super low owned. And Muniz apparently has picked up another injury, which is going to leave him out for a week or two. Now, of course, wait and see what Marco Silva says before you lock anything in. Because if Muniz is available, I wouldn't go for either of them. It's also worth saying that Raul Jimenez has been struggling with issues as well. Like, even though he's playing, he's not been training properly, so he's not 100%. The problem is, I don't think outside of Haaland and Mateta, there's many amazing forwards this week, which is part of the reason Raul Jimenez made his way in. Like, if you're looking at that team thing, I definitely don't want him. I'm not going to sit here and strongly argue with that. But when you look at the other options, like Strand Larsen against Palace at home, no. I don't hate Thiago, nailed on penalties. It's away to Brighton. You could go for Welbeck maybe if you can afford it. In fact, yeah, Welbeck against Brentford at home is probably better than Raul Jimenez if he's not 100%. But there is a difference. Actually, there's not that much of a difference in price, I don't think. Let me just double check here. 6.2 versus 6.5. So maybe you can afford that. Welbeck definitely one to consider. If you knew that Isak was definitely out for whatever reason, Ekitike is an option, but he's much more expensive. So then you've got to start making changes to other positions. Evan Nilsson against West Ham at home. I mean, maybe if Kluivert's off the pitch, Evan Nilsson will take a penalty over Semenyo. You never know. Either way, not many forwards. So the other option is to go 4-5-1 and just put another defender in. So earlier on, I spoke about maybe putting in like Munoz instead of Van Dijk. Maybe you just put Munoz in instead of Raul Jimenez and just go 4-5-1. I really don't hate that. Like, this is the season of Defcons. It's the season of defenders doing well for us. You don't necessarily need 2 or 3 forwards every single week. And maybe this game week lends itself to that. Maybe you want to drop Saka for a different midfielder and go triple Arsenal defence. Go Van Dijk, Gabriel, Calafiori and Timber and just go all in against Spurs. Whatever you want, right? I just think there's quite a few nice defenders like Senesi against West Ham at home, Truffert against West Ham at home, Munoz, who I mentioned. There's probably not, I mean, if you really wanted to take a massive punt in defence, and I wouldn't recommend going for this over a forward, by the way, De Ligt against Everton at home, goal threat, Defcons, absolutely nailed for Man United. I just wouldn't expect Man United to keep many clean sheets. That's the problem. Or Chelsea, away to Burnley. Like, if you want to go for a goalkeeper that's at home, but you want to take a punt on Reece James, although less people will be willing to do that now after he got benched last game, or Cucurella against Burnley away in a 4-5-1. I don't hate that either. So when I look at this team, defence I'm really happy with. I think you could absolutely make a couple of changes, but if I had to lock this in right now for Free Hit 12, I quite like that. The midfield I think looks great. There's not really many changes I would make to that. It's just the forwards. If you haven't got Haaland there, like Haaland and Mateta would be obvious, but Haaland's so much money. So I like Raul Jimenez, but I don't know, as I'm talking through, going for Welbeck feels safer, or even going for a back four looks quite nice as well. I'll leave that there. Let me know if you're free hitting in the comments below. What would you change about this team? Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you next week for some more videos.